My dear CHIP students, how are you doing? If you're watching this video, you see that I've learned how to make a YouTube video, and if I can do it, you can do it. Why don't you tell me where you are and how things are going there? Because different parts of the country are having different kinds of experiences. Here in Maryland, we've been ordered by the governor to shelter at our homes, just go out for groceries and medicine. Mayor of DC has promulgated the same order, so you can't move around DC. I think developments have shown that when the president of our consortium acted and had you leave Washington, she was doing the right thing. Things were going to get worse. Here in Washington, we're hoping that we don't move down the road to New York, which is move down the road to Italy, but we'll see. I was just at 510C a few days ago before the mayor ordered us to not do such things. Thanks for leaving it in pretty good shape and the keys and things. We've had the maintenance people go through it. It's ready to go for the summer. The problem is there are no summer students. We'll see if that changes. It's still up in the air as to whether we can have a complete fall semester, but we can only make that decision as data comes in and as the situation changes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to send you a video every Friday, and I'm going to put it up on YouTube, and I'm going to ask you to do the same. And I'll talk about that in a second as to how you can do that. Now, you should have a copy of the revised syllabus. I got it right before me. Let's go over it. These are unusual circumstances, and we have to make do with the powers of our disposal. We should be thankful that the digital technology is so developed now so that we can communicate without the contagion, having an opportunity to move from person to person. So here's our revised syllabus for our internship seminar that meets on Friday. Today, Friday, April 3rd, we're going to go over the revised syllabus, and I want to, when I'm done going over the syllabus, finish up on the models of Washington, D.C. Remember, we looked at a couple models last time as to how power works here. We're going to finish that up. Then next week, Friday, April 10th, is Good Friday. No class. Spend the day wisely. You might spend it with your family, but you're doing that anyway, aren't you? Friday, April 17th, oral report on your senior colleague interview. That's the video that you'll move up to YouTube, and I'll send the link around so everybody can see it. Friday, April 24th, we have an oral report on individual book critiques. So you should read your individual book. By that time, outline and send us your oral report on your book. Friday, May 1st, oral report on your Washington Experience project. Now, some of you already did your Washington Experience project. If you hadn't had time to do it, you can choose as your Washington Experience project how it was to be in Washington as this coronavirus crisis came down and how you reacted and how people reacted to it. You can do that as your Washington Experience project. It's kind of unique to be in the nation's capital when we have a crisis unlike any we've seen in the past. Now, going back to the revised syllabus, Tuesday, May 4th, we got to remember we got two graduating seniors, Carmen and Abby L. Your written papers are due for your graduating seniors on Tuesday, May 4th. You can see a list of them down below on the syllabus. Wednesday, May 5th, final exam for graduating seniors, Carmen and Abby L. Again, before then, we'll talk about what to do to get ready for that final exam. Friday, May 8th, final exam for everyone else. Then Wednesday, May 13th, all written papers are due, including your senior colleague interview, that's about a 2-pager. Individual book critique, that's a 5-pager, that's more substantial. Your Washington Experience project, that's a 2-pager. And everybody does the 10-page summary of the semester. That is, you look at your whole semester, and in its totality, you write up a 10-page summary of what your experiences were, what you learned on your internship, outside of your internship, living in a communal setting as you have here on Capitol Hill. Now, all these papers are due on Wednesday, May 13th. Now, read below that you have to do oral and written reports on these various projects. How do you do the oral report when we're not snuggled in at 510C on Friday? Oh, we miss that, don't we? Uh, if I can learn to learn to use YouTube, you can also. You can see why I'm not a television star. Here's what you do. You sign up for a YouTube account. Then you verify it. Verifying means you have to tell YouTube, this is my phone number, this is who I am, and there's some communications to make sure you are who you say you are. Verifying it lets you put a longer video up on YouTube. Without verification, it cuts off after just a few minutes, which is most annoying. Tell me how I found that out. What you do then is you make a video of your presentation on your computer, you upload it to YouTube, then you email me the link to that video, and I send that link to everyone else, and they click on that link and they get to see your oral report in this way. I'll send this link around to all students as I get them, and you should send me that link by Friday morning, 11 a.m. Plan on doing your video a little before that. Sometimes it takes time to upload it. Sometimes the traffic is heavy and you have problems doing it. Now, the written papers will be delivered via email, like we always do, so there's no change there. Now, I told you that I also wanted to talk about the Washington models, the models of how Washington works. Remember, before you left Washington, I had looked at the Democratic model. And the Democratic model had public opinion with certain views, and they passed through linkage institutions into the government, and then what comes out is what the people want, what public opinion demands. That's the Democratic model. We talked about evidence for and evidence against, that's an accurate model. Then we looked at a different model, the elite model. And in the elite model, there's a small group of people in the model called the elites. And the elites dominate public opinion. They dominate communications and education in the United States. Cab drivers don't run universities, do they? Highly credentialed elites run universities, run communication organizations like CBS News. And then the elites not only shape public opinion, but we had an arrow that went right into government. Elites are connected into government. They can push government to how they want it to go, so that the policies that come out of government are what the elites want. That's the elite model. Now I want to give you another model. This one's called hyperpluralism. And this is how hyperpluralism works. You have the public opinion out here, but public opinion really can't move directly into government. Instead, I put interest groups here. Now, I put 3 here, but there are thousands of interest groups. And what these interest groups do is they're connected, and we got 2 parts inside of government. They're connected to the executive branch and the bureaucracies, and then they're connected also to the legislative branch through individual members of Congress, their staffs and committees. That's what interest groups do here. And what interest groups do is that politics and policy is made in these triangles. These are called iron triangles. The interest groups are at one apex, the bureaucracy is at another, and the executive branch staffers are at another. And within these interest groups, they make the policies that come out of this model. Now, think of how that works. Let's take an example. A policy, there are thousands of policies that come out of Washington. I'm going to choose sugar. The making and the selling of sugar is a big deal, and government's involved with it. Well, you have sugar growers. They belong to the Sugar Association that looks out for their interests. We have 143,000 members of the sugar industry that are in the sugar growers. So what the Sugar Association does is it looks out for the interest of sugar growers. And what it does is it pushes policies that will help sugar growers in the United States. And we can divide Americans into sugar growers and sugar consumers. What is the various percentages of those two? Wouldn't you say sugar consumers are probably 99% of Americans? I know you might not like sugar, but all those things you eat, if you look at the contents, there's sugar in them. Corn syrup, sugar cane, all kinds of things. And then there are the sugar growers. Are there maybe 0.01% of the population? They're small in number. And there's a conflict of interest between the sugar growers and the sugar consumers. The sugar consumers want lots of high quality sugar available at a low price. What do the sugar growers want? The sugar consumers want lots of sugar at a low price. The sugar growers, Well, they don't want the supply of sugar to be large and they want the price to be high. So there's a conflict there. Who wins in Washington? The 99.9% sugar consumers or the 0.01% sugar growers? Well, let's look at the sugar policy. Sugar policy for the United States government props up the price of sugar. It keeps out sugar from the United States, only allows a little bit to be imported, and they keep the price high. So sugar growers make a fortune. How could sugar growers win in Washington when we have a democracy? And sugar consumers don't want that. They want lots of sugar available at a cheap price. Well, in fact, it works because of the way interest groups work in Washington. According to this model, interest groups are the key to how Washington works. So that sugar growers, they get together and form associations like the Sugar Association. They hire professional lobbyists who work in Washington and work very hard to keep the price of sugar high. And so they win the battle. That's what hyperpluralism says. And it's not only in sugar. It's in all these other interest groups and issues in Washington. Uh, what people often do is they come in Washington young, they work internship and then a staffer in Congress or in the bureaucracy. They learn how the game works and then they move to the private sector, hired by lobbying firms. Say you work as a staffer on Capitol Hill, you might start at $28,000, $29,000, move up into the 30s. When you work with lobbyists, you're going to double or triple your salary. And you're going to represent organizations that want to be represented in Washington. The First Amendment says that people have a right to petition government for redress of grievances. And most people don't know how to do that, but there are people in Washington who know how to do it. They're the lobbyists. People taking the lobbying class will see from Mr. Polly exactly how this works. Take Mr. Polly as an example. He came here, worked as an intern, worked in the bureaucracy, learned how water works. He started his own company, Water Strategies, in which he represents people who have an interest in water policy here in the U.S. He makes a good living at it. And he's not the only one. Thousands of people of Washington do this. And this hyper-pluralist model says, this is how Washington works. What I want you to do is to think about this model and think, is there evidence that this is an accurate model as to how Washington works? And is there evidence that it's not a very accurate model? And why don't you email me back your ideas? And remember, set up that YouTube account, and by 11 o'clock next week, you should upload what we're doing for the week. So next week, you've got time to learn how to use YouTube because there's no class on Friday. So you have some time to learn it. But by Friday, April 17th at 11 a.m., you should do your senior colleague interview, make a video of it, upload it to YouTube, and send me the link, and I'll send it to everybody, and they could watch you in action as a television star. Thanks for listening and watching. Bye.